Sooner Nation, Longhorn fans, welcome to episode 126 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. It is game week of the 2024 college football season. We have been waiting for this, not because it's just a regular football season, because it is our foray, both schools, into the gauntlet of the Southeastern Conference. Both schools have warm-up light games to get us kind of getting ready for the season, but the slate of games this week is unbelievable. The football season is jumping headfirst. I love every second of it. But first, Kevin, I attended an event last night.
Okay.
My wife received free tickets to this event. It was in a suite, which I thought would be very cool. And I thought it can't be that bad. In fact, it might even be good. I might be surprised by this event.
Now,
okay?
when you say a suite, what do you mean? Like a hotel
Like
suite?
a section 200 on the concourse of the Paycom.
Okay, so
right?
it's an arena event.
It's an arena event and a suite. And I thought to myself, well, this could be pretty cool. I don't know. I'm going to give it a shot. My wife really wanted to go. I said, why not? I like old music. My first car was a 1970 VW Bug. It only had an AM radio station. In San Antonio, that meant I picked up 1520, which was the oldie station in San Antonio. I don't know if it still is, but it was for a long time. So, dude, listen, Temptations, Beatles, anything in the 60s and 70s. Dude, I actually dug all that. And I still do. I really, really like it. So I thought to myself, this might not be that bad. In fact, it could be really good. The artist was Barry Manilow.
Okay.
It was like a knife thrust to my temple. It was the worst thing I'd ever experienced in my life. And what made it weirder, Kevin, was as I sat back and watched it, I'm watching these other, I don't know, there's probably like 8,000 people there. Definitely not sold out. But the 8,000 people there were invested in the musical stylings of Barry Manilow. And I just sat back and was like, I can't believe this is even happening. I mean, I don't know. It was bad, dude. It was bad. And I was disappointed in him and myself.
Well, how old is Barry Manilow now?
He's 81.
81. Okay.
81.
Some of it.
Yeah, look, I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know. I just thought maybe okay, I'll give you an example. I went and saw Rod Stewart like 4 or 5 years ago, okay? And there were so many songs that Rod Stewart sang that I didn't even realize he sang. And so, like, as the concert progressed, you're like, oh, okay, this is a good song. Oh, yeah, this is a good song. This is a good song. Not for Barry Manilow. They were all the oldest songs you've ever heard. I didn't know half of them. I didn't even know 3/4 of them. And it was unsettling how bad it was. So I apologize to all our listeners who were at the Barry Manilow concert and enjoyed it. I wanted to be anywhere but by the time that thing started. It was terrible.
Shout out to my mom. She's a big Barry Manilow fan.
Okay. Well, I just offended your mom.
No, you haven't.
I love your mom.
He's
know
81.
That.
He's 81. So, I mean,
dude,
not much you can expect. I didn't realize he was that old, but it does make sense now that you say it.
It wasn't good, dude. And I'm really hoping that my life, my psyche, my brain gets a cleanse from this college football opening weekend because I need it right now. I can't get the image of how bad it was out of my head, but we're going to try. Week 1, Kevin. First of all, Oklahoma plays Temple. Texas plays Colorado State. We're going to break those games down. But first, week 1 college football is here. It's pick'em time. You are the king of the picks. You are so good at picking against the line last year. It was crazy. If you're listening to this show and you want to make some money, listen to Kevin Miller. Kevin, we start Penn State, West Virginia. It's an 8-point spread. West Virginia was 9-4 last year. Penn State's going to West Virginia. They were 10-3 last year. Does West Virginia have a chance to upset Penn State, or does Penn State start the season off with a win, which ultimately leads to another season of mediocrity?
Okay, I think Penn State will win the game. Shout out to West Virginia, right? We did not expect them to be good at all last year, and finishing 9-4 was a big deal, right?
Yeah,
really
they ended up pretty good.
I think they'll be okay this year too. I think Penn State will win the game, but I actually think West Virginia will cover.
Penn State is the most boring team in college football, and not just their uniforms.
I like their uniforms. I get why they're boring, but I like the uniforms.
Dude, when they wear black shoes, they just look so slow. Oh my god!
I get the black shoes.
It looks like you're watching
shoes and the white socks. That's what I don't like.
Dude, I don't like any of it. I'm all for tradition, but it's like they're the Barry Manilow. Basically, here's the segue. It was building up to this. They're the Barry Manilow of college football. There you go. That's why I mentioned it. Here's a big time one. We're probably going to pick this one. We usually pick 3. You might want to go more, but right out of the gate, dude, you got Clemson, Georgia, and it's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so anything but a neutral site game. Georgia's a 13.5-point favorite. They have not lost a regular season game since 2020. That's an amazing stat. Cade Klubnik, with probably his last chance at Clemson to determine if he's a quarterback or not. Thoughts on Georgia Clemson?
Well, first of all, and there's only, if I'm thinking about this correctly, I think there's only one active head coach that has beat Kirby Smart in a football game. Do you know who that is?
Oh my gosh. Ryan Day hasn't beat him, has he?
No.
Is it Dabo?
No.
Okay, then I don't know.
It's Tom Herman.
Tom Herman? Are you serious?
Tom Herman.
Who did he
Texas versus Georgia in the Super Bowl. Active coach, yeah. Saban.
Okay, in the Sugar Bowl when
with Ellinger.
When Ellinger said Texas is back or whatever.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It just shows you how dominant Georgia has been. Only Alabama's been their only kryptonite.
Well, and they haven't even been that big a kryptonite. I mean, over in this decade, I'm guessing it's pretty even, right? It's probably 500.
Yeah, they beat them for the Natty.
Yeah.
So,
jeez, that's crazy.
Alabama beat them a couple years prior on the Tua to Devontae Smith deal. But as far as this game goes, this is really interesting for Clemson. Like you said, Cade Klubnik, 5-star guy, came in with a bunch of hype. New coordinator last year with Garrett Riley. It just hasn't clicked for whatever reason with him and with that offense. Georgia, though, on the other side, their defense was not as good as we were used to seeing last year. So it's going to be big for them, too. If Clemson can come out and move the ball on Georgia, that'll be very intriguing to see what that means for Georgia going forward. So, man, this is really important for Clemson. Go ahead.
It's interesting. No, it's interesting you say that about Georgia's defense, and I wasn't planning on bringing this up. But you saw the salaries, and this is a little plug for OU, but you saw the salaries of college football players in the NFL, where Alabama alumni in the NFL currently are making like $500 million this year in salary. Oklahoma, believe it or not, is at number 2, like $401 million or something, some crazy number. Obviously, since CD just signed, which we all knew that was going to happen. It's just like one even wait, but
yeah.
But the interesting thing, and I don't know what Georgia finished at, but if you think about the players Georgia has had over the last 4 or 5 years, you haven't seen just this overwhelming rate of success in the league by Georgia players.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened.
Interesting, right? And they're sending guys left and right. They got guys everywhere.
Well, I think about Philadelphia. They drafted like 3 or 4 Georgia guys in one draft, but none of them have really like become these just dominant forces in the league, and they're definitely not getting paid at the same rate. Now, if I look back and Georgia was number 3, okay, but I don't think they were, man. I think it was Ohio State or something like that. But Georgia just it's I think they have a very good system under Kirby Smart. Clearly, that's like an understatement. But is the talent always there? That's an interesting topic to bring up. And I think we need to keep an eye on it, especially when you add Texas and Oklahoma to the mix in the SEC.
Yeah, well, when it comes to recruiting rankings, they're always top 2 or 3
Absolutely.
every year, right?
Absolutely.
And obviously the development is there because they're sending guys to the NFL left and right, but we're not seeing those guys become stars in the NFL yet. I'm going to give it a couple years, though, right? Because most of their guys under Kirby have been in the league 3-4 years. So we'll see when those second contracts start rolling in because with Oklahoma, you've got guys that are veterans. Kyler Murray, who's been there 5 years, who just got an extension. Baker, who's been in the league for a while. Trent Williams is still very highly paid at left tackle because he's still one of the best in the league at it. So I'll give him a couple years before I judge too harshly, but they got to get that defense better this year because I think the last thing Kirby Smart wants to do is turn into a team that has to outscore opponents to win games.
Texas alumni, $100 million versus OU at $400 million. In other SEC games,
that'll be changing soon, but just so you know.
Chattanooga takes on Tennessee. Tennessee's a 38.5-point favorite. I think we could lean Tennessee. Local games of interest. South Dakota State is a 10-point dog at Oklahoma State. We're not going to pick this game, but Oklahoma State doesn't historically start out seasons very well. And I don't know that you want to play any team in college football with the name Dakota in it.
No, not at all. That's a no-win situation. We talked about Colorado playing North Dakota State. Yeah. Why do you want to play them to open your season? No, thank you. I don't want a team that wins FCS championships. No, thank you.
I mean, I look at that line, and I'd be really
10 points is really small. That is a small line.
Dude, Oklahoma State got rolled by South Alabama last year, or whoever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they got rolled in the first, and they ended up being in the Big 12 champion. It's not that they weren't a good team; they just don't start out good. This is like a history with Oklahoma State. This has got upset special all over it. Another game we most likely pick, the U is at the Swamp, where they are a 2.5-point favorite against Florida. Mario Cristobal is under 500 in his 2 years at Miami. Graham Mertz is the returning quarterback for Florida. Does Billy Napier get this murderous schedule off to a good start with a win against the U, or does the U set off alarm bells ringing in the Swamp?
Man, it's so hard for me to trust Miami. I like their talent. They have a really good roster if you look at it top to bottom. But are they going to become a smart football team? Some of the things they did last year, you saw the ending of that Georgia Tech. What are we talking about? That's coaching. That's a head coach. You literally cost your team a very important conference football game. When you could have taken a knee, for some reason you run the ball inside and lose it, end up losing the game. And we saw plays like that from them all season long. Well, I don't know, man. It's hard for me to take them seriously. They've got all the talent in the world.
It's not like the ACC is a juggernaut of college football in terms of other teams outside Florida State and Clemson. So to have a losing record for 2 years, including non-cons that now, granted, I give them credit for playing Florida every year and that sort of thing, but still, man, you've got to be over 500 in the ACC. So to be under 500 2 years in a row is just, with that talent, that roster composition, it just doesn't make any sense. Here's the deal with Florida, though, dude. If they don't get a win, I mean, Napier might as well just put it in early because the back half of their schedule is nothing like I've ever seen. I mean, if you think Oklahoma has a tough schedule, look at Florida's back half. It's insane.
Yeah, it's the toughest schedule in the country, at least top 5 toughest schedule in the country. Here, I think they could win this game, though, because even though I think Miami has a better roster top to bottom, I just think it's there for them. Miami also starts slow, typically, like you mentioned with Oklahoma State. Florida, with their talent, and they might have a sense of desperation, knowing that the schedule gets so difficult for them down the stretch. They might be desperate to start off 1-0.
Old Dominion is at South Carolina. South Carolina is a 21-point favorite. That doesn't seem like a lot of points against an Old Dominion team for an SEC matchup. So whatever. I guess that's an indictment on Shane Beamer. So hopefully they cover. Eastern, the next 2 games are a tale of 2 Kentuckys. Eastern Kentucky is a 25.5-point dog at the now Jeff Levy-led Mississippi State Bulldogs. And Western Kentucky is a 31.5-point dog at the now led Kalen DeBoer Alabama Crimson Tide. I don't think we're expecting any surprises from those games. Furman plays Ole Miss, where Ole Miss is a 42-point favorite. Another highlight game of the weekend. Number 7, Notre Dame, going to number 20, Texas A&M. Notre Dame is a 3-point dog, largely based on the home field advantage of Kyle Field. Connor Wegman returning for the Aggies. I did not know this until I looked it up in prep for this podcast, but I didn't realize that Mike Denbrook is the offensive coordinator now for Notre Dame, along with new quarterback Riley Leonard. We talked about all year Marcus Freeman being a good coach, but having a terrible offense. Having Jaden Daniels as former offensive coordinator combined with the proven quarterback capabilities of Riley Leonard, I'm thinking Notre Dame wins this game, dude. I really, really do. I just don't trust Elko and A&M, and it's still A&M at the end of the day.
That is true, and I just don't know what to expect from them offensively, Texas A&M. I think their defense will be solid because they still have talent, especially up front. They brought in the Nick Scourton kid from Purdue, who's one of the best edge rushers in the country. So I think he'll have a big impact. So the defensive line talent will be there. They've got good linebackers. We'll see how the secondary looks. To me, this is going to come down to what Notre Dame can do offensively. They'll always play good defense under Marcus Freeman. If they can become explosive on offense, I think they have a chance to be a really good football team this year, and I think they can win at Kyle Field on Saturday.
I agree. Fresno State takes on Michigan, your opponent next week. Michigan's 21-point favorite. Alabama A&M is a 48-point dog at Auburn. Southern Miss, 28-point dog at Kentucky. Probably the game that has my eyes on is LSU, a 4-point favorite against USC. This game taking place in Las Vegas. Miller Moss, quarterback for USC, replacing the legendary Caleb Williams. LSU has had 4 straight opening season losses. They lost the aforementioned offensive coordinator to Notre Dame. They did pick up the Texas D-line coach, Bo Davis. I mean, really, to me, the question is, who has the more improved defense?
Absolutely.
If LSU has a more improved defense, they beat USC. I don't think USC is composed in such a way that they can compete with an SEC physicality. But if LSU plays defense like they did last year, there's a good chance that Lincoln Riley carves them up. So
yeah, Lincoln Riley can beat them in a shootout if it comes down to that.
100%.
I would trust Lincoln Riley, or even over Brian Kelly, who's a great coach offensively, when it comes to a shootout.
Does Bo Davis have the kind of impact on the defensive line as the coach to really affect change this quickly at LSU, or has he not?
I think so, but I think he'll have an impact. He's that kind of coach. But what's the talent like, and what's the rest of the calls are going to be? Because last year they couldn't cover anything, right? They just couldn't cover at all. Guys were just running wide open down the field.
Have you ever had to ask yourself in the last 20 years now, basically, since LSU won a national championship in 2003, have you ever had to ask yourself what's the talent level at LSU?
It's very rare. It's very rare.
It's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
LSU is typically loaded. You could make the argument some years they're the most talented team in the country, and it always kind of depended on coaching and a few things falling right, and when they played Alabama and that sort of thing.
And what their offense was going to look like.
And what their that's exactly right. And what their offense was going to look like. And dude, I don't know, man. LSU not to be questioning their talent, that's concerning for LSU fan. But I agree with you. I think it's a legit question. Boston College at Florida State. We'll see if Florida State can recover from their dramatic loss to Georgia Tech in Ireland.
They better, because you can't go 0-2 in conference to start the season.
I know, dude. Isn't that weird that it's a conference game? It's one thing to play a neutral site game. It's another thing to play a neutral site game across the Atlantic Ocean. It's yet a third thing to play a conference game at a neutral site game across the Atlantic Ocean. Like that's
it's pretty bizarre. But I think that Ireland game has been like that. I think a couple years ago, wasn't it? was it Nebraska and Northwestern
Yeah,
who
but
played over
cares?
there. And I think I'm just saying as far as it being a conference game.
Yeah, you're right.
I think next year I think it's K-State and Iowa State or something like that playing over there.
You're going to see
So it's
SEC teams
bizarre.
over there. We're not going to send it. Let's not send SEC teams over there.
Yeah, no. Let's not do that. We'll
We don't
open
need
at
to do
home
that.
against a average opponent.
Yeah. Arkansas Pine Bluff, no line against Arkansas. Murray State, no line against Missouri. Virginia Tech, 13.5-point favorite over the perennial whipping boy Vanderbilt of the SEC. Kevin, you've heard all the games. Real quick, we'll pick OU and Texas afterwards. OU is a 42.5-point favorite. Texas, 31.5-point favorite over Colorado State. We'll pick those games after we do the previews. So you heard all the games. Okay, it's a good slate. This is our third year doing games. We typically only pick 3 games, but you brought up before that you might want to pick 4 games in addition to the 2 OU games. Do you still stand by that, or do you want to stick with tradition?
No, man, let's do pick 4. It's week 1. And there are a lot of big games. Clemson, Georgia, Miami, Florida, Notre Dame, A&M, LSU, USC.
Those are the ones you want to pick?
Yeah.
All right, lead it off. Clemson, Georgia. 13.5-point favorite for Georgia.
Late cover by Georgia.
Yeah, I got Georgia. Miami and Florida.
What is the line again? Remind me.
2.5. Florida is a 2.5 dog at home. They are a home dog. 2.5 points.
I'm going to go Florida in the upset.
I'll make it interesting early. I'll take Miami. I don't like Miami, just so you know.
I just want to know, are they serious? Are they a serious team?
Well, I don't know that they are, but I think they can beat Florida. Dude, this is to me the most intriguing game. Well, maybe not the most intriguing game nationally, but definitely within the SEC is Notre Dame at A&M. I think it's even more so than Clemson, Georgia, because you get to see where A&M kind of stacks up and what Elko might bring to the table. Notre Dame, a 3-point dog at Kyle Field to A&M.
No, I'm going to go with Notre Dame to
Notre Dame. It's Notre
we've
Dame.
seen them. They perform well in tough environments at Ohio State, so I think they'll play well. I think they'll win.
I feel a lot better. See, I don't want to harp on this, but knowing that they've upgraded at OC, like to me that makes a huge difference. I mean, what was holding them back the last 2 years under Marcus Freeman was their offense. They were hard hitting, they were aggressive, they were all the things on defense, and they were just totally inept on offense. Correct. Now you've got a good quarterback, good offensive coordinator, good head coach, and it's Notre Dame, and they're playing A&M. So I think it's pretty simple. Lastly, LSU, 4-point favorite, USC in Vegas. Is this on Monday night?
This is Sunday night.
Sunday night. What's the Monday night game?
I'm not sure. I'll pull that up real quick.
All right, that's okay. LSU, USC. Who you got?
I've got LSU. That's just because, I trust them a little bit more than I do USC right now. I want to see what USC is going to do on defense. I also want to see what LSU is going to do on defense. But we could be in line for a shootout here, which would be fun. But right now, I just trust LSU a little bit more than I do the talent that USC has, especially on defense.
I don't like LSU at all. I really haven't in a while, probably forever. But I definitely don't like USC more. And so regardless of it, and I just don't trust Lincoln Riley's defense. Even in a shootout, they're going to do something stupid. Miller Moss, USC tried to forecast and put him in the same vein as Baker, Kyler, Jalen, and Caleb Williams. Look, dude's played a bowl game. Okay, like what are we doing? That just the comparison. If Oklahoma did that comparison with those 4 guys, it would feel weird. Okay, but USC to do that comparison with 4 Oklahoma quarterbacks seems triply weird. So I don't like where they went with that. I can't imagine that he's going to fill the shoes of Caleb Williams as effectively as the 7-5 team did last year. It's going to be LSU. All right.
Yeah. I'm curious to see, though. I think they're going to put up points because it's Lincoln Riley.
Okay.
Listen, yeah, well, look, regardless of what you think of him, and I understand, you know this, I support you and your hatred of Lincoln Riley. I am
No,
a
man.
supporter of that, but he's going to put up points. That's all I'm saying.
He's
You
going
know
to
he's
put
going
up
to put up
points.
points.
Dude, he puts up points, but he loses games.
Yeah, so that's all I'm saying. He's going to put up points, and all we know is LSU, based on last year, is they give up a lot. I picked LSU to win and cover, for the record. I'm just saying, it wouldn't be shocked if it's 48 to. I like his offense.
Kevin, he went 7-5 with Caleb Williams.
I said I like.
I don't know how many times I have to say that. I feel like you just make me say it every time.
I say I like his offense.
I feel like you wait till we're on the podcast. You seem like a normal, respectable, sound-minded human being, and then you start throwing out you love Lincoln Riley, and I have to remind you that he went 7-5 in a watered down Pac-12. Stop it. You could have his offense. Oklahoma had his offense, and we didn't do crap with it. Okay. Jeez Louise. Speaking of the University of Oklahoma,
interesting.
Going up against Temple Friday night lights, 6 p.m. Gaylord Family Memorial Stadium, Owen Field, taking on the Temple Owls of the American Athletic Conference, coached by Stan Drayton, who's got a 6-18 record as the head coach for Temple. He did coach at Texas from 2017 to 2021, mainly running backs, assistant head coach, running back or running game coordinator. His pretty illustrious list of schools he's been at, though, and professional organizations. He's been with Green Bay and the Chicago Bears as a coach, Mississippi State, Florida, Tennessee, and Ohio State, in addition to being with Texas. So if you want a guy with pedigree, Stan Drayton's your guy. Pretty nice little resume. I don't know if he's the most illustrious coach in the history of Temple, however, because from 1934 to 1938, you want to guess who their coach was?
I have no idea.
Pop Warner. How do you like that? How do you like that?
I didn't realize that.
Did you ever play Pop Warner football?
I did not. I didn't play football until middle school.
Dude, Pop Warner was a thing in San Antonio. People played Pop Warner football. That's what you played. You played Pop Warner. Also, Bruce Arians, Matt Rule, former coaches at Temple. Look, dude, Temple's terrible. I'm not going to talk about Temple. They've got a good run. I don't know what they have. I think I think they have 40 new players. Look, I'm not going to sit here and try to they're terrible. Okay.
Listen,
go ahead.
Something just popped in my head. I got to tell you.
Okay.
Remember in 1992 when the NBA players were allowed to play in the Olympics for the first time, and they had a press conference, and they asked Charles Barkley about their first opponent, which was Angola. And Charles Barkley said, "Listen, I don't know anything about Angola, but I know Angola's in trouble." That's what came to my head of thinking about OU versus Temple on Friday night in Norman.
I think you're right, man. They're just not good. I don't know any other way to describe it. It's a great game to start the season. You saw what happened to Florida State against Georgia Tech. We talked about it. Their season is not over by any means, especially with the new playoff. But it's a kick in the footballs, right? To lose a conference game that early. We've seen tough games for Oklahoma, BYU in 2009. When we're the preseason number 1 team in the country, that was a losable game, and we lost it. We talked about Lincoln Riley. Tulane was the first game of the season, and we barely escaped. There's plenty of situations that you don't want to be in. For the first time under center as the official starter for Jackson Arnold, this is the game you want. I mean, this team isn't as good as our third team. So it's an opportunity to do a lot of different things. OU captain's going to be Jackson Arnold, Stutzman, Bowman, Bauer Sharp, which that has me excited. That has me excited that he's earned a captaincy in the first game after only his first fall camp. Maybe his only fall camp. He might be a senior. I'm excited about that. Injuries of note, Nick Anderson is very questionable. I'd be surprised if he plays. Dason McCullough, I would almost put it as not probable. I don't think you'll see Dason McCullough. Things I need to see, Kevin. Offensively, I think we need to see efficiency out of JFA. I want to see, I say this every year, this is nothing new. I should have my run the damn ball hat on. I don't. I have a new hat. but commitment to the run game and establish rhythm and identity running the ball. Like, this is the perfect team to just, in the second half, have 40 straight run plays. You know what I mean? Just like run the ball. And then I want to see, has Brendan Thompson developed into a route running receiver? He surprised a lot of people by becoming a co-starter next to Nick Anderson. Some people blame it on Nick Anderson's injury. Others want us to take it to the point where potentially he's a really good route runner. He's improved his game. I hope it's the latter, because if he is a good route runner now, he is a weapon with that speed. It's almost unguardable. And that's what I want to see offensively. What did I miss offensively that we need to look for, Kevin?
I mean, really, the offensive line, right? You want to see how they're going to run block and how they're going to pass protect. That's the biggest question mark on the entire football team for you guys this year. So can they hold up? Are there going to be any busts out there from the line? I think you know what you have at receiver. It's not a problem. Even with Nick Anderson potentially not playing, he probably shouldn't play. Why would you even risk it against Temple? Why risk it? You've got depth there. So you know the passing game should be good, but are they going to be able to protect Arnold long enough for him to be able to hit those guys down the field, which is a big part of your offense? And then how are those running backs going to look? Especially Javonte Barnes.
I agree. You want to see an explode. We talked about this. OU fan, I want to see an explosive Javonte Barnes. I want to see against Temple, regardless of offensive line, average north of 5 yards a carry. Okay? If he gives us any sort of performance that's reminiscent of last year's 3.1 yards a carry, I don't want to see Javonte Barnes again. Okay? I want him to light it up against Temple. And he should have that opportunity, right? Like, this is the game and that's why I said establish an identity. That's as much for Javonte Barnes as it is for the rest of the running back and offensive line. Like, establish that identity. Show us that you're the guy that we thought you were 2 years ago. And if he's not, it better start being the Caleb Hicks, Taylor Tatum show pretty darn quick following Gavin Sawchuk. That's the by, that's by the by. All right. Defensively, talking about the depth chart that you have up there. True freshman Jaden Jackson secured himself a starting position on the depth chart. My question is he the real deal? Is he really the next Tommy Harris? Like, I have to know this. This is the most intriguing thing on the defensive side of the ball. And for me, it gets me fired up. We've talked about this. If you're going to go recruit guys and they're good enough, you play them. And it shows every other recruit in the country, if you're good enough, you play at Oklahoma. I love it. Who plays corner?
With him, real quick, with Jaden Jackson, I think he probably held up the best, right? He's kind of 6'2", kind of squatty, strong base. He probably did the best job at holding up against the running game, which teams are going to test, right? They know that you guys are really sound and solid in the secondary, really sound and solid at linebacker, probably your strongest position with the Venable specialty there. But they're going to want to test how you're going to hold up, and I think he was probably the best at holding up against the run.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I hope you're right. I also want to see who plays at corner. Not because I don't trust Woody and Gentry, but there's been just a lot of buzz around the corner position. Okay.
What are you hearing?
Well, look at this right here. They got Kenai Walker or Woody Washington. Woody Washington's a 5-year senior. And he's being put on an oar with Kenai Walker. What that tells me is Kenai Walker must be showing out. And it's going to be critical to see who starts. You know what you get with Woody Washington, but is the upside with Kenai Walker better? Then you look at the other side. Des Malone, Gentry Williams, and Jacoby Johnson, Mustang, Oklahoma, are all oars. That's fascinating. Now, could that be injury to Gentry Williams? Could it be because we're playing Temple? Could it be we want to give these guys the buzz of all being oars? I don't know. So I want to see who plays at corner in the first half. Second half, whatever. I'm not going to worry too much about it. It's that first half of snaps. I want to see who plays corner. And lastly, are they as dominant against an inferior opponent as they should be defensively?
Yeah.
I want them just
to be like.
Yes, just smother this team. Just absolutely smother them and make it miserable. And
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking. That's what I'm looking for defensively.
Woody Washington actually a 6th-year senior.
This is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like Woody. This isn't a knock on Woody, but Kanai Walker at 6'2", 206? That sounds pretty good, dude.
Yeah.
I like that.
And it's interesting that they listed him first, too. You know, I don't know if that matters. You know, him being above Woody Washington, even how they're listed there on the depth chart, if that means anything. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, it's just nice to know for you guys that you have depth out there in the secondary.
Well, we have depth, and look at the size of those corners, Kevin. Kanai Walker 6'2", Woody Washington at 5'11". On the other side, though, Des Malone 6 foot, Gentry Williams 6 foot, Jacoby Johnson 6'2". Dude, that just sounds good saying that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's always relieving to have length in the secondary.
Yeah, like I see Eli Bowen at 5'9", and there was a chance that 4 or 5 years ago he's starting at 5'9".
Oh,
you know,
sure.
And you're like, ugh.
You gotta be if you're 5'9" playing cornerman, you gotta be a dog.
Well, right? I think about Texas games. You know, like I said, 4 or 5 years ago with Colin Johnson and
Little Jordan Humphrey and all that.
Little Jordan Humphrey and the size that you guys had, dude, it always looked like a mismatch. How you didn't take better advantage of our secondary back then, right? I mean, because y'all were ginormous and we were tiny. And now, if we were to line up against that same level, the disparity wouldn't be as glaring, you know?
It looked like more of a mismatch or more of a matchup, not a mismatch.
Here's the problem. We're going to pick Oklahoma now, Kevin. The problem is Oklahoma is a 42.5-point favorite. And the game is so lopsided that you just don't know what's going to happen in the second half of the game, right? Does Temple keep their starters in? Does BV unload the bench early? Does BV keep the gas on and a chance to just kind of establish something and go win the game 60-0? I hate the line there. I don't think you would pick this for real, would you, if you were like at a Vegas sports book?
No, I would not. Absolutely not.
That being said, I'm going to go out on a limb on the first game. I'm not entirely confident about this, but I'm going to do it. I'm writing it down. OU covers the 42.5, game 1, 2024.
Oh, I agree.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. You heard it here first. If Kevin says
you can score 70 in this game, and they might score,
12.
16, 12, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yep. Kevin, before we move on to the University of Texas, Brad O'Haver works for the insured, not the insurance company. If you've had a loss to your home or your business, you want to call Brad O'Haver, 405-735-5510. They get you more money on your insurance claim. If you're out of your house due to an insurance claim, if your business has been impacted due to an insurance claim, whether you filed the claim or you've already filed the claim, whether you haven't been paid, you've already been paid, at any point in the process, it makes sense to call Brad O'Haver, 405-735-5510. Call them and get paid. Stop not getting paid. Get paid. CeeDee Lamb got paid. You deserve to get paid on your insurance claim. 405-735-5510. Kevin, the University of Texas opens up at Darrell K. Royal Stadium on 2:30 Saturday. ESPN. Darrell Royal's wife, his first name just escaped me. I apologize. But his Mrs. Royal passed away this past week. Edith. Was she from Oklahoma too?
That I don't know of. She may have been. I'm not sure.
A lot of talk's been made about Josh Heupel coming back to OU, right? Having won a national championship there. Darrell Royal, legendary player. Darrell Royal never had to come back to OU though, right? He only had to go to Dallas.
Correct.
It's just an interesting dynamic. But rest in peace, Edith. And if you are Oklahoma born, we love you. If you're Texas born, we love you too. That's all right. You're playing in Colorado State. It's their third season under former wide receiver coach Jay Norvell. Was Jay Norvell also at Texas?
Yeah, for a little bit? He's familiar with both. Yeah, he was at Texas for a while. Receivers coach.
He created a little buzz last year prior to his matchup with Colorado. Him and Prime got a little trash talk going on, which kind of made it fun.
It did.
It was a good game. They didn't hold on to
Great
win,
game.
but it was a good game.
Uh-huh.
This year, they're picked to finish 5th in the Mountain West. They haven't had a winning season since 2017. Their best player, though, unlike Temple, they have a best player. Troy Horton is a 6'3", 185-pound wide receiver in his 5th year. Last year, he was 4th nationally in receptions, 11th nationally in yards receiving. Kevin, talk us through what this matchup looks like for Texas. Talk about the fact that Sark doesn't like depth charts, and give us an injury update.
Okay, yeah. So no official depth chart. I mean, we know who's going to be playing, though, right? We know who's going to be playing quarterback. We know who's going to be playing running back. We know who's going to be playing at receiver. We just don't know who's going to be out there on the first play. Well, we got a bunch of guys that will be playing. Colorado State, I think, is a good matchup. We've got a pretty good quarterback he's got a strong arm. He can sling it. You talked about Torrey Horton. 96 catches, over 1,100 yards last year. He's big. He can run routes. They use him on the middle of the field a lot on those crossing routes, which, as you know, killed Texas last year. So they're definitely going to come out and test that. They also have Armani Winfield at a receiver, who was a transfer out of Baylor, who was a Texas commit at one point. Texas recruited him really hard, ended up going to Baylor. And now he's transferred to Colorado State. I guess he had a relationship with Norvell. But he's a talented guy. They got a lot of players from Texas on their roster who are going to be excited to play against the Longhorns. I don't think it'll matter too much, though, because I think Texas will be dominant in the trenches. Their offensive line, they're experienced, but I don't think they're great. I think Texas should be able to dominate the lines. They should be able to get pressure on the quarterback. They better be able to get pressure on the quarterback. It will concern me for the rest of the season if they aren't. Really, what I'm looking for in this game is I want to see us come out to. Go ahead.
Okay, so I gave you 3 keys offensively, or 3 things I was looking for, and 3 things defensively. Give us 3 things you're looking for offensively from Texas. Let's start there on the offensive side of the ball. 3 things.
Okay, what I'm looking for is I don't want any of those stupid self-inflicted mistakes that teams have. I don't want to see a bunch of penalties, false starts, snap infractions. I don't want to see drop passes. And I don't want to see blocking assignment busts. Like teams running stunts and twists and us missing on those, leading to sacks and TFLs.
Do you have your offensive line is going to be one of the most experienced in the SEC, right?
Yes.
I can't imagine you're going to see that. I would expect to see a nice buttoned up from offensive line to quarterback, a nice buttoned up cohesive unit.
That's what I'm hoping.
If you see that, you're going to be scratching your head. 100% agree.
Correct. Yeah. Week 1, let's start sharp, right? We've been practicing hard. You know what it is. Just go and execute your assignments right there. And again, our young receivers, I just want to see if they hold on to the ball. A lot of these guys talked about this. I feel like we're reloading at the receiver, but it's still a lack of experience despite the talent that we have there. Are these guys going to run their routes properly? Are they going to be able to catch the ball in some of these big third downs, right? Because you know how these games start off. They start off a little bit close. Colorado State might make a few plays. What if we're down 7-0? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just go out and execute your assignments and make plays. That's what I'm looking for offensively. I want to see how we run the ball. Again, we have Jaden Blue. We got guys that can run the football. I just want to see how we do it. Are we going to be dominant up front, opening holes for our talented running backs?
Okay. And number 3.
Number 3, Quinn Ewers, right? Sometimes the thing about Quinn, despite his talent, is his mechanics can be poor. He did improve on that somewhat, but there are still moments where he's throwing off his back foot. There are times where he leaves the pocket for no reason. There's not a rush coming. He has an opportunity to stand in there, but he just, for some reason, likes to roll out and hit guys on the run. He just doesn't have to. And when he does that, he's put himself in situations where he's gotten sacked, where the offensive line, the protection wasn't the problem. He was. A lot of his sacks were self-inflicted last year. So is he going to be more patient just sitting in the pocket and making throws from there? Because his best throws, if you think about his best throws, the deep throw against Alabama, both of those deep ones he had for touchdowns were plays where he just dropped back, set his feet, and just let it rip because he's got that arm talent. It doesn't display as much when he's not set. So that's what I'm looking for from him, the mechanics
Okay.
and the patience in the pocket.
I feel like when I gave my three things, you called me out on the biggest miss, which was offensive line. You were like, "Oh, those three things are nice, but it's your offensive line," and you were right. I'm going to call you out on what I think is your biggest miss is running back. Kevin, it's running back, dude. You're down like 14 guys at running back. You just signed a grad transfer at running back. Aren't you at least a little curious to see if y'all can pound the rock against Colorado State?
Yeah, but I took that to the offensive line and how I think we'll be able to run the ball fine even without that because we have Jaden Blue. If we would have lost him, Christian Clark was going to be our fourth running back as is.
Okay.
The Christian Clark thing really hurt because of losing CJ Baxter. Right? So I feel fine with Jaden Blue. We've seen what he can do. And Trey Wisner, I feel comfortable with him too. So actually, though, that's actually not one of my biggest concerns
That's
in
not what
this
you're
game.
concerned.
No, I'm talking about in this game. I want to see.
Well,
I really want to see the offensive line more than anything dominate and make things easier for those inexperienced running backs.
here's the deal, dude. Oklahoma doesn't have the same non-con that you do, clearly. So this game is going to be so telling heading into Michigan in 2 weeks. Like,
Correct.
to your point, to my point and your point, if the offensive line can dominate and the running backs can show production, like strong production against Colorado State, it's going to make you feel a whole lot better heading up to Ann Arbor.
Correct.
But if they're missing assignments, the running backs aren't missing making that first tackle miss against Colorado State, I don't care how many people Michigan's graduated. The level of talent at Michigan is going to be so much greater than Colorado State. It's not even going to be funny. You know what I mean?
And they've got guys. They lost a lot, but their defensive line, they've got 3 guys back who are all good, and of course Will Johnson, their outstanding corners back. Of course, we'll get more into them next week. But yeah, we got to be able to run it. And because the thing about Texas, their offensive line, they were good in pass pro, and we ran the ball well, but we didn't run the ball well in situations where we had to run the ball well.
Right.
Obviously, you remember the goal line stand in the Red River Shootout.
Yeah. Do you have that queued up? Do you have that queued up? Did you want to play that right now?
I don't have it queued up, and even if I did, I wouldn't. We all remember
Sometimes when I'm feeling down, Kevin, like just low, that happens. You just kind of have a low day. I just cue that up. I cue that up. It's like a 2-minute clip, and then I cue up the last drive. I just feel good, dude. Like it just makes me feel good. It's like it's a warm glow that enters my life when I watch those two. Do you not have anything like that?
I do. It was us winning the conference and playing the college football playoff. That's mine. So yeah.
Oh, and then if I just really want to just kind of giggle, I watched the last play where Quinn Ewers misses a wide open AD Mitchell. So
okay.
Which you would think
he wasn't wide open.
John, why does another team's misfortune make you feel good? That sounds a little petty. It absolutely is, Kevin.
Yeah, of course.
It absolutely is petty. I'm the pettiest guy you know, and it feels really good. Defensively, 3 things. 3 things we're looking for on the defensive side of the ball against Colorado State.
Okay, number 1 is the secondary. How are we going to cover? The talent is improved. We have some guys transfer. We are more talented in the secondary than we've been in the last few years. Can those guys cover? I don't want to see any busts, especially on those crossing routes. I don't want to see Troy Horton. He'll make plays because he's an NFL guy. But no bust, though.
Who's their quarterback? Did you mention their quarterback's name?
Yeah, I've got his name here. His name is, give me 1 second.
But you're right, though. While you're looking that up, this is a much bigger test for Texas than it is for Oklahoma this week. Because this is, you said it, this is an NFL level quarterback, NFL level wide receiver. They are going to make plays, and this is kind of a really good way to test yourself and kind of get a benchmark where you're at early.
Correct. Okay, the quarterback is Braden Fowler Nicolosi.
Oh, 3
Braden
names.
Fowler Fowler. It's a hyphenated. Fowler Nicolosi is his last name. It's actually from Aledo, Texas. Big time program in the Metroplex.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
What year is he? Is it
He
some show?
is, I think he's a junior.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
hey, man, if he's from Texas, he can sling it. He's played 7v7 his
Yeah.
whole life.
For sure.
You know?
For sure. So again, he can sling it, but he's a guy, he's a gunslinger. We should force some turnovers against him, is what I think. Okay.
Is that number
Again,
two,
no
forced
bust.
turnovers? Is number two forced turnovers, or is that a different number two?
No. Number two is make plays defensively.
Make plays, forced turnovers.
Turnovers.
Got it.
And it's really everything. Turnovers, TFLs, and sacks.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't anticipate that you just dominate them physically as much as like what I expect OU to do. But to your point, you want to see game changers, right? You want to see the hard hits, the sacks, the stuff that gets your crowd fired up and kind of demoralizes Colorado State early. Am I right?
Especially, in week one, that's what you want to do. You don't want to give your opponent any sort of hope that they have any chance to win or even be really competitive in this football game.
Can I guess number 3?
Yeah.
Edge pressure.
That is it. Pressure, man. Yeah, we talked about Trey Moore coming in from UTSA. We got the freshman Colin Simmons.
You're excited about that kid, aren't you?
I'm very excited about him. He's just a natural rusher, and we haven't had that in a long time, man.
Where do you go to high school?
Smithson Valley.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're good.
They are.
They're all good programs. All those Texas programs are good, though. You know.
Yeah. Smithson Valley is a good one, man. And Coach Hill's been there for a long time. I mean, he was there when I was in high school, and he's still there. So he's done a really good job. So him, the freshman Colin Simmons, I want to see him out there getting pressure. I want to see Ethan Burke getting pressure. So let's go, man. Like that was the biggest deal because even with the secondary, it just makes it a lot easier for them if you're getting pressure on a quarterback. You force them to make early throws, rush throws, which leads to tip balls and interceptions.
Well, Kevin, it's that time. Much like OU, the line is 31.5 to Texas. It's early in the season. We think Texas wants to send a statement to the rest of the SEC. Do they do so by covering against Colorado State at home on Saturday?
You know what? I don't think they do. I think they win. It's a very comfortable win, but I think they end up winning by like 27 or 28.
I think Texas covers.
I hope you're right. I think like 41-17, something like that.
I think Texas covers. We'll see. I'm writing down Texas. I kind of here's my strategy, right? Is I want them to cover and I want them to be really cocky going into Michigan. You know, so I need to pick them to cover, pick them to get cocky, and then we'll see what happens next week. Either way, though, it's an easy win, right? It should be an easy win. If it's not an easy win,
it's a comfortable win. Yeah, I think it's a comfortable win. 41-17, something like that.
Kevin, I forgot to mention when we were talking about Oklahoma. DeMarco Murray has been suspended one game. I assume it's this game.
It would make sense, right?
Yeah, that hasn't necessarily been said explicitly, at least to my knowledge, but he's been suspended one game, and which is a self-imposed suspension. And then OU imposed a ban on official visits this week, which is funny because I don't think they had any official visits scheduled. So it's almost like they knew about it and just didn't worry about it.
Well,
apparently,
plus, there's no official visit because all the players are playing. It's Friday
on
night.
Friday, 100%.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Smart by OU though.
Yeah,
very
right,
smart.
Sure. Okay. From what I understand, we're talking about. I'm going to use the word insignificant. You can tell me if I'm minimizing it, but I feel like he's being penalized for an insignificant number of impermissible phone calls and texts, like less than 100 phone calls, less than 50 texts, or maybe vice versa. In the age of NIL, when you can drop the biggest bag of bags, when Texas can promise Lamborghinis, when Oklahoma can go into the transfer portal and pay a kid over $1 million in Dominic Williams, when Stutzman and Bowman can make cash money on merch, are we joking right now that he's suspended for impermissible calls and texts? Can you please rationalize that in some way that it makes sense to me?
Well, because it's happened to you guys in Oklahoma, I'm always going to make fun of it and say, okay, of course. But honestly, man,
Like, what are we doing?
The rules for, calls and text messages, we need to reevaluate this.
Now,
The only reason phone calls and text messages should be limited is if we're annoying the crap out of a kid by texting him 50 times a day. But as far as when you should be able to call or text, does it really matter?
So
why is there a dead period?
Is that what we're talking about? Is calls and texts within the dead period? Is that likely
That's
what the issue is?
Yeah. And they had done some sort of alteration to it during COVID, and then that thing had ended. It had gone back to the old way. And DeMarco said that he didn't realize it had gone back to the old way. It's a whole bunch of who cares.
It's a whole bunch of who cares. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. But I don't even think it's that, right? To me, it just seems like it sounds like OU's compliance is the one that self-reported. I mean, they self-reported it. So they self-reported it. They've imposed a suspension. I guess they're being out front about it and stuff like that. But to me, it's just like one of the dumber things I've ever heard. It's just like so stupid. I can't even stand it.
Yeah, I think with this time, the things that you can do to recruit players, we shouldn't be worried about text and phone calls.
100%. It's just
simple.
Weird.
If
this happened to a Texas, I would hope I could be as rational about this if it happened to a Texas coach. Because you look at like Connor Stallions, which I guess the documentary's out. I haven't watched it. Have you watched it?
Me neither. No, I didn't even know it was out until yesterday.
I mean, that stuff's shady, dude. Like,
correct.
I mean, we're talking like forging travel documents and sunglasses and disguises and like that's
you're wearing the other team's uniforms and getting on the sideline. The other team's merch and getting on the sidelines.
It's unbelievable. It is officially, there's no other way around it. It is cheating. That's
cheating. Correct. That's beyond gamesmanship.
It's beyond gamesmanship. That's exactly right. It's beyond looking for an edge, right? It's beyond cutting a corner. It's straight up cheating. And yet, nothing's going to happen to Harbaugh. They're not taking away Michigan's national championship. They're just not going to do it.
No, absolutely not.
There's been some talk about Sharon Moore being punished. That's not going to happen. He wasn't the head coach. So the whole thing, but that to me is like, okay, we're going to let that just kind of hang out there. And the coaches are getting suspended because they sent 33 text messages. Stop it. Now, here's the deal. It wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be surprised if the number was crazy, right? Like DeMarco Murray sent 700 text messages. Okay. That's crazy. I'm not surprised by it. That's crazy. That seems excessive. I get it. We're talking literally less than 100 though, right? I mean, I don't think I'm making that up.
No, you're not. You're not at all.
Whatever, dude. If DeMarco Murray wasn't hurt against Florida, we beat them in 08, just for the record. He was a great running back, dude. He was a great running back in the pros. How good was he with Dallas?
He's incredible.
Speaking
like I said, what I respect about DeMarco Murray is how he kind of reinvented his game after the knee injury at Oklahoma. He was a slasher, really fast running back, and then he had to kind of change his game.
Yeah, became a bruiser.
Yeah.
He ran between the tackles. You know what always was weird about DeMarco Murray? If you go back and watch OU highlights, especially, and in the NFL, they talk about leading with the crown of the helmet. And that running backs can be suspended for that or, penalized for that now or whatever. He was the king of that, dude. His head would get so low that every time he got tackled, I was scared to death he was going to be paralyzed. Go look at those old highlights of his, dude. Every time, dude, he would get that head so low. Do I think it got him an additional 2 yards every carry? Yeah, probably. Do I think it led to him leading the University of Oklahoma in all-time career touchdowns? Yeah, probably. It still scared the crap out of me when he'd go into the pile, head down, and you were just like, oh, don't, like, And he did the pros, too. I did not like it.
He had a great career. He retired before he had to. He still had offers on the table, so
dude, he's a good-looking dude, too. And he's a good-looking dude. And he's like
Yeah,
one of
he's
the
just
best
he's
looking.
just a cool cat all around. He's a really good player. So players
His
seem to like him
recruiting
too. So
story is still one of the best. You remember this one?
why don't you remind me?
Stoops is there in Las Vegas, right? Is that where Bishop
Yeah,
Gorman
Bishop
is?
Gorman. Yeah,
He's there, and I think he's recruiting Ryan Reynolds, the guy we had at linebacker, the one that got
yeah.
hurt in the 08 Red River game. And anyway, he's there recruiting Ryan Reynolds, and I don't think he was allowed to talk to DeMarco at the time. But they're in the basketball gym, and DeMarco does like an off the backboard crazy ass dunk. And he turns to him and says, I don't know who that kid is, but I'll offer him.
Yeah.
So just let him know. Let him know to call me.
You've seen enough. You've seen enough. That's all it takes.
Dude, and that tells you what it means to be an athlete. Like, good coaches know this. Like, hey, I saw enough to know. He can play corner. He can play safety, running back. I'll put him wherever he needs to be. He was so dynamic, dude. He was so dynamic.
Yeah, he's a freakish athlete out there, and he can do it all. He can do it all at the running back position. Really good route runner, great hands. So
I just wish he wouldn't have returned kicks for us in the Big 12 championship game. Speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, Sedarian Lamb. I mean, come on, right? Dude needed to get paid. We talked about this. This is not breaking. This shouldn't even be breaking news. This should have been like, what are we doing? He should have been paid this 2 months ago.
Hey, but good for him. He got to miss training camp and still got paid. Good for him. We knew it was going to happen. He's one of the best receivers in the league. They had no choice but to pay him. What are you going to do? Let him sit out the whole season?
No, it's stupid. Jordan Whittington, Texas receiver, makes the cut for the 53-man roster for the San Diego Chargers. Drake Stoops misses the cut.
LA Rams.
I'm sorry. LA Rams. You're right. Yes. Misses the cut. Drake Stoops. So Jordan Whittington makes the 53-man roster for the Rams. Drake Stoops misses the cut on the 53-man roster. Any surprise?
Not really. I mean, it's just a different level of athleticism. Stoops is a great player, and he might have a shot somewhere else, maybe get on a practice squad. We'll see.
Yeah,
I think he made a huge impact in the preseason for the Rams.
I think it highlights just the difference in the game. That being said, we've seen small receivers in the small, sure-handed receivers coming out of the slot be incredibly effective over the last 20 years in the pro game. So hopefully he finds a spot. Some people on Twitter are like excited. Oh, well, he'll get to go play for his dad in Arlington. That doesn't seem like a win to me. That's not
what he's trying to do. I mean, he'll do that eventually if he has to. But I think right now the kid has NFL ambitions, and I think he should chase those as long as he can.
Yeah, it's I hope he gets picked up, but not again. I'm with you. Not surprised. What other NFL notes do you have, or what else do you want to hit on before we close Week 1 preview out?
Honestly, man, I'm just so glad the season's here. The season is so short when you think about it, right? It starts in late August, September, and then by early January, it's done. And then we have this whole time that we're waiting on it to start. So it's crazy that it's here. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to just locking in and watching all these games and looking forward to stepping back here and talking about them every week.
Dude,
so
I am so happy. I am so happy that OU's game's on Friday. Okay. Because I can watch it, enjoy it. It's the only game on, quote unquote, get it out of the way, which it's not really what I want to do, but you know what I mean? Get it out of the way and then settle in Saturday and watch every one of these games we just talked about. And guess what? John doesn't have any soccer games to go to. So I'm in a great spot. I'm very excited, dude. Listen, man, you just think about the change that this sport is going to experience this year. You don't have a Pac-12 anymore. You have two basically super conferences now, the Big Ten and the SEC. Oklahoma and Texas are part of what we think is the best conference. And then layer that, okay, if that wasn't enough, layer a 12-team playoff. You're never out of it. You're never out of it until, I don't even think until you get 3 or 4 losses.
3 or 4 losses, for sure.
That is just a radically different take. Florida State is still in it. They're still alive.
100% still in it, yep.
And so it's just, dude, we're going to have to change so much about the way we think about conferences and records and all of it. And I just, dude, we've been talking about it now. It's here. It's game week. We just got you prepped. We just got you ready. Dude, Kevin, I love it. Dude, have a great afternoon. Have a great first week of games. Look forward to talking to you Sunday. Boomer.
Welcome.